Okay.
All right. So, thank you.
Okay. So Sophie Zadatny for the Office of Legislative Counsel. Yesterday, I was in here testifying on H403, which is the minimum wage for agricultural workers bill. And there was conversation around if you increase agricultural workers to the state minimum wage, and that's an added cost for, I mean, some farmers are already paying that, but some are not. What happens with the housing allowance that's permitted? And yesterday, I testified that it would be, you couldn't go below minimum wage. I followed up immediately after the hearing with the Department of Labor to get clarification, and they followed up with their Division on Wage and Hour, who is the group that enforces the minimum wage laws. And they confirmed that you can deduct that housing allowance even if it brings an employee below the minimum wage. So I just wanted to be very clear with the committee to make sure there wasn't any confusion on that. It's the language around this, it's in rules, it's in statute, it's just not crystal clear. So I wanted to confirm.
Good, thank you. Representative Brett.
Is that Vermont Department of Labor,
Yes,
not federal?
right. So our Vermont Department of Labor has a wage and hour division that enforces, it's a complaint-driven process.
And then also, when you said housing, what about there's on that table that included food?
Right. Yes, that's,
There,
yeah, same thing for that as well. I just know that housing was the main concern that the committee had. So, okay.
Representative O'Brien.
So going in the other direction, if you were a farmer and you were paying a wage below minimum wage, you would still have to, with that housing figure that's added to it, you'd still have to be above Vermont minimum wage.
Yeah. So if you raised the individual workers hourly rate up to the state minimum wage, you can then go ahead and deduct the housing allowance, even if that brings them below the state minimum wage. That was where the confusion was.
Okay, so I was just thinking in de facto terms, if you can't then hire an ag worker for $13 and then have the housing added in to bring them above Vermont minimum wage.
Right. You would need to do it as.
The other way around.
Right.
Even though it's the same ultimately.
Right.
Okay,
So in doing so, it increases the FICA payments.
Yeah, and I did clarify with the department that the housing allowance comes off the gross wages. If that's,
So it increases state taxes paid, federal taxes paid, FICA taxes paid.
So, is that a question or is that, are you asserting that?
I am asserting that I did follow up.
Asking Representative Nelson.
Okay.
Oh, I'm clarifying.
but you didn't say the same, sorry.
So I think the question is for the purposes of paying either federal tax, state tax, or Social Security, Medicare, that's calculated off of the gross wage. And then the employer can, under state law, deduct a certain amount if they're providing housing, and that becomes, along with all the other deductions,
Right.
that becomes what the employee gets. That's right. Okay. Richard.
I don't want to open up this box, but.
No, go ahead.
So if you're paying somebody already well above minimum wage and you're supplying them housing, do you have to put that on their wage too and make it gross wage? So they have to pay tax on top of that as well?
I think it's up to the individual farmer whether you want to charge for the housing. If you haven't been charging for it, you don't have to charge for it. I mean, it's an allowance. You're allowed to deduct that amount.
Okay.
All right. So if ready to move on, I will share the current.
Let's share that.
Again, just a quick run through from yesterday. So this is just going through again the definitions for an employee in terms of who's has to be paid minimum wage and overtime, and what this amendment does, as no change from yesterday. This scoops in now agricultural workers into the definition of employee. Students continue to be excluded, and then in section 2. Agricultural workers would be entitled to the state minimum wage, which again is not specific in the statute, but the current calculation is $14.42 an hour. This bill would go into effect January 1 of 2027. So likely the minimum wage will be a little bit higher come January. And then the second section provides that this now carves individuals working in agriculture out of the overtime provision. So they would be consistent with federal law. They would be subject to state minimum wage, but not the state overtime requirements. And then this is the new language. This adds in a requirement for the Commissioner of Labor in consultation with the Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets to submit a written report to this committee, House General and Housing, and then the equivalent committees on the Senate side on the lodging allowance that employers are entitled to deduct from an employee's wages. If you wanted, that could also include the meals and things, but I know the housing was really the concern that the committee had. And then subsection B lists what specifically you would want the report to address. So the background on how lodging rates are set, whether the current methodology for calculating lodging rates should be updated, whether there should be a separate lodging rate for farm worker housing, and any recommendations for legislative action. So that was the change to the bill. And again, this would, same as before, this would provide that the minimum wage would go into effect January 1 of 2027, and then change the name of the bill if it were to pass.
And can you just, do you have at your fingertips what the current housing allowable deduction is?
Yes. So these again are the numbers for 2026. These numbers would probably also go up a little bit in January. I know there was a question yesterday about where did they start in 2009, and the nightly lodging in 2009 when this calculation, when they started this, was $3.73 a day or a night and $22.43 a week.
373
A day and $22.43 a week. And that was
and adjusted every year.
right. And that's where we're at now,
Inflation.
using that calculation.
Okay, go ahead, John.
When it says the report shall address the background on how lodging rates are set, are we talking those?
Yes, yes. And again, it's specific to lodging. Again, if you wanted it to include the meals, we could include the meals. I just know that was not where the focus was for the committee.
Those meal prices are almost as good as the school lunch prices.
Representative O'Brien.
Sophie, did you find the equivalents for H2A?
I did. So this was from a presentation that I believe this committee received. And so I didn't have time to do a separate graphic for you, but this was what was presented. And again, this was an interim rule that was issued in October for the H2A program. And then it lists out the numbers at the bottom for Vermont. So what this new rule is seeking to do is coming up with two different tiers. There didn't used to be two tiers for H2A. And so this is the new level. So 1596 for the lowest paid folks. And then 1453. So that, on the one side is the average for US workers, and the maroon colored is the H2A over here. So 1435 is a little bit below the current 1442. So if this bill is passed, they would, an agricultural worker, and I believe an H2A worker would then be entitled to the 1442 rather than the 1435. But they, this adverse compensation adjustment on the far side here, that deduction of $1.61, that's now to take into account the housing. Because before for H2A, you had to provide free housing. So you still have to provide free housing, but now the employer gets to have that deduction off the hourly rate.
So this is confusing. And I'm gonna say it's not you who are making it confusing, but I think we should understand so it seems to me that it's a parallel situation. That what we have here with that 161, that's the housing cost. So they're deducting that from the wage, they're allowed to deduct that, starting this
Yeah.
coming year.
And that's a deduction on at an hourly rate. Again, the Vermont one is structured a little bit different. It's a weekly rate rather than coming off the hourly rate.
So in this case, is the blue number? I can't really see, I can't really.
Yes, I don't know if I can probably make it bigger. Here we go. Oops.
So
The blue number is for US workers. Again, this is to do with the new rule that they have.
yeah,
The H2A in that same category. I think this is just to demonstrate at the federal level that they're not disadvantaging US-based workers.
Representative Barth, thank you. Representative Bartholomew.
Is there anything in this that if you have a farmer that's offering housing, does the worker have to take the housing? Are they required? Is there anything in this requires them to take offered housing?
No, I mean,
They
it's
can say, I'm going to take the wages, keep your housing, I'm going to go live somewhere else.
right, yeah. I mean, unless I don't know if a farmer would say it's a condition of you working for me is that you have to be in this housing, and that might be a separate issue, but the bill is not addressing that.
Is there anything that would keep the farmer from saying that, if you want to rent housing, I'll rent you this space, but at fair market value, where that table wouldn't apply at all? So the employee would say, take this, or I'll, go live somewhere else.
So I think you'd have to be very clear on whether or not the housing is connected to the job, right? So if you say you can rent this house, I have this available, you can rent this house from me. That's a separate relationship. That's a landlord-tenant relationship that you're establishing. If you're dissatisfied with that employee's work or whatever, you choose not to continue to employ that employee, you're going to be right. You're going to be bound by whatever the landlord-tenant arrangement is.
Maybe this doesn't have to do so much with this bill, but on the overtime side, do workers, and let's say ag workers, what are you required to do after your 40 hours? Like, can you, if you were ag worker, could you tell your employer that you've done your 40 hours and you don't want to work anymore? I mean, sometimes they may want to work 80 hours, but I just wondered what your rights are as an ag laborer when you're getting into those overtime hours.
So as the employer, you're required to pay the employee for all the hours that are worked, but right now they're not entitled to overtime. So from the employer's perspective, if somebody works 60 hours, you have to pay them for 60 hours. And again, if there's disagreements between the employer and the employee in terms of, I don't want to work 60 hours, that's just part of the normal employment relationship. Again, that's not really impacted by this.
Okay, so, but you potentially could be fired for not wanting to work over your 40 hours a week?
Yeah, I mean, there's different claims. So yeah, usually there's a whole lot of background that goes in behind something. So there may, I don't want to suggest that you could never have a claim. You could certainly have a claim of some sort, but right, if somebody takes the job understanding this is a dairy job, the hours are very long, that's the expectation. I think there are, again, there still would be subject to some of the rules around the ability to take sick leave, et cetera, right? So other employment laws would kick in. But yeah, the general principle is, yeah.
All right, any other questions? So right now, that amendment that you had up on the screen, Sophie, the only changes it makes to existing statute are removing the exemption for agriculture workers who are adults. And effectively, it does that. And it creates a study group or something at the end.
Yeah, this wasn't framed, again, this was just simply asking,
Just
right, it was just simply asking the Commissioner of Labour and then in consultation with the Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets to just sort of revisit and then submit a report to the General Assembly, and presumably these committees would want to have the Commissioner of Labour and or the Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets come in to discuss, you know, the housing allowance. Should that be tweaked in some way? Should that be a separate one? You know, again, I don't know how many employers offer housing these days beyond, you know, in the farm sector. But again, it would be just interesting to get an update, I think, on the calculation itself hasn't changed since 2009. So,
I mean, and, you know, realistically, right, if we said today, here's what we think the rate should be, it should be adjusted by inflation going forward, that makes sense. What doesn't seem to make sense to me is how they came up with that number, 373 or whatever it was.
right.
First place in, you know, in 2009 for a night in a, you know, and under a roof. So once that report came back to the legislature could then decide to change that number.
Right. So currently in state statute, the authority is delegated to the Commissioner of Labour to set those, to set the allowances. So, you know, again, depending on what information you receive, the legislature could, I guess, take that away or provide some further direction on what those allowances should be. But right now, the Commissioner of Labour has the authority that's been delegated to the Commissioner by the General Assembly to make that determination.
We don't delegate, I'm just thinking out loud here, we don't delegate to the Department of Labor what the minimum wage should be. And that's
Right.
been the source of many contentious discussions in this building. And I'm not sure why that other number would be any different, but
We delegate like at least a COLA increase in all those numbers.
well, I
It's
think
not a
that's,
specific dollar number, but the rate of, you know,
Yeah.
federal increase.
yeah, I mean, I think that's what is delegated right now, sort of, is that,
Because those aren't even close to following COLA if it's only gone up that much. And
well, yeah, okay, I was assuming that it was following, but maybe it's not.
no, it
I
doesn't.
mean, it's currently the calculation is increased by 5% or the percentage increase of the consumer price index. So it's seeking to do that, but I think it started from a very low place. So
Inflation was low for a number of years and then
It starts small, you don't grow much
dramatically
either.
fast.
It missed 22, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Sophie? So, any other questions about what currently this draft does, whether you like it or not? I think that's maybe the way to put it. Because we're losing Sophie here. She has to go to her next committee. Thank you. Thank you, Sophie. Any other conversation on this?
I'm not sure that I care, but I'm wondering what the Commissioner of Labor would say about having to do this report. But as I said, I'm not sure that I care.
Yeah, no, that's a legitimate question. Yeah. I mean, normally we would, if we were assigning a new report to the Secretary of Agriculture, we would get their, you know, let them know and see what their reaction was.
My thoughts on this is I hate dictating how much somebody's gonna pay when they don't have any control over what they get paid for the product they're selling. Zero. And that's the issue I have.
You're talking about dairy milk.
Yeah, I'm talking.
Yeah.
Dairy, you can't, we're not allowed to raise our price. We can't say the cost of our labor's gone up. We need to get paid more for our product. And a couple states the couple states that have changed it do so much more for their agriculture than we do here in Vermont. And we don't have the money here in Vermont to do so much more. But just the fact that if you change how that housing is figured and having to pay tax on it is another added burden. So it's just, you know, and dairy farmers cannot, you know, right now we're getting hit with fuel surcharges. Which, boy, Jack, they have a hard time remembering that fuel dropped back down to cheaper price, don't they? You know, that fuel surcharge all of a sudden comes home. And, Casper. And, you know, it's just, you know, farmers don't get a chance when wages go up in the school district, pass along taxes. When wages go up in a store, they can absorb so much, then they raise their prices. Wages go up through union negotiations at a shop. If they need to, they increase the price of the product going out the door. In agriculture, we can't do that. As Matt,
that COLA.
yeah,
Increase.
as Maddie said, the farmer that said to her, well, if I have to pay my worker time and a half to pick an extra box of bok choy, can I charge 150% for that box of bok choy? And I know that you took overtime out of it. And again, the labor market is so tight. It's so tight. As you saw driving in the other day, you know, if you're not paying your employees well, you're not gonna have employees. You know.
Well, what you're saying too, I mean, it's interesting that if we changed it, the real wage for the ag worker might stay exactly the same. So you pay the minimum wage, but then you deduct. So they're getting $13.69, say, an hour, as opposed to you're paying them $13.69 and they get free housing.
And they get free house
Yeah,
without paying.
but as you say, the farmer gets dinged if we change it.
Mhm.
What are the stakeholders, like migrant justice, et cetera, what are they doing?
So migrant justice was very much in favor of all three changes, two changes plus the survey when they testified, and the Farm Bureau didn't really stake out a position other than to share survey results, which included some percentage in the 20s, I think, of their members who said that they paid less than minimum wage. And I don't know how big that survey was. Amber didn't know for sure. NOFA supported the first and third pieces. The Dairy Producers Alliance did not want to come and testify. They wrote that they did not support the overtime, and they did not think that the survey was helpful. They didn't address the minimum wage in their letter. That's posted on our page. So we can ruminate on that. This morning we had on our agenda the baby food bills just to discuss, and we didn't get a chance to talk about that. We will have Katie coming in tomorrow morning before we go onto the floor to be with us and hear any thoughts on that. But I just wanted to see if anybody in the committee, after the testimony we had last week, or I'm sorry, this week, yesterday, the day before, had any thoughts on any changes we might want to make to that, or if we like the bill the way that it's currently drafted. So the testimony was from the Infant Formula Association, and the latest draft had or does incorporate, removes that exemption for infant formula. So just wanted to see whether anybody had any reaction to that you wanted to discuss or try and get into. Yeah.
I was not persuaded that we should change the legislation that we had drafted. I like having the infant formula in there.
They're not exempting it.
It feels like it's backwards to say. I would just say, I think we should have both baby food and infant formula included as things that Vermonters will be able to assess.
I just wanted to be sure that.
Yeah.
It is a little
Yeah.
confusing. Yeah.
And it seemed like, echoing that, it seemed like a lot of the argument was that having the word toxin on the label would convince people that this is a toxic product. And that seemed like a weird argument.
It was interesting to find out that the FDA is now doing research and studies into it. And be interested to see what they have to say. I thought Maryland would be further ahead with theirs. And I don't know if they really are not gonna go with it, or if they are. I do worry that I don't know how many babies we have on formula at any one time, but 10,000. That's a pretty small number in the whole scheme of.
Is that in Vermont? Or?
Yeah, in Vermont. Well, they have 200 births a year at North Country Hospital.
So maybe we don't.
We have,
We have 5,000
So
school
one
grads.
is yours needs this
4,000,
too, so.
and they're all important, every one of them, but is that enough babies to make industry care, or does industry say they can drink almond milk, which would be just terrible? But, cow milk would be all right, but anyway, so, I worry about, if we were gonna go ahead with formula, I maybe would put even a further kick-out date with a request that legislature look at it to make sure it's good to go before it goes, if you understand what I'm saying, instead of saying, this is it. I'd rather say, kick it out even another year and wait to see what Maryland, California, Illinois, Virginia do. So that we're not going it alone, but, and then if. I don't know, that's where I'm coming from, I want to do something and absolutely on the food and I think it's important those kids all have something clean, like we've gotta. Have respect for the process too, and I'm hoping. I'll keep waiting for your guy, Bobby Kennedy, to keep coming ahead with strong. The food,
Oh my God.
the food
Stay
thing,
on the
the
record.
food thing,
Oh my God.
Michelle.
Constituent.
There's libel or slander or something here.
Yeah, let's just backpedal. We'll erase that, please.
Ed?
And notwithstanding any allegiances here, that were just mentioned, I actually was swayed by the testimony we received the other day about some of the possible impacts of young mothers cannot lactate or whatever, of being that doing homemade formula presented more risks than whatever the industry is currently adding with a lot of protections. So I'd be more moderate than Rep Boswin or Rep Bartholomew, and I'm leaning to support, obviously, the baby, food bill excluding formula.
Thank you. Any other? I don't know whether your positions were just correctly represented there, Representative Boswin and Bartholomew, but
Yeah, I want to be sure that
I understand.
Well,
where you're going.
I mean, I can just say that, I mean, part of what the gentleman who testified about formula said was, oh, mothers will see if they test a certain baby formula product and it's toxic, then they'll say, oh, this is all terrible. Now I'm going to go get some totally different product that isn't infant formula. And I just think that is actually honestly a ridiculous statement, because there are dozens of possible infant formulas. And if I were a mother or anyone were a mother and they picked up a bottle and they tested a certain one and they're like, oh, brand X has this level, I'm not going to serve brand X to my baby. I'm going to go over here and check brand Y. Oh, brand Y is lower. Great. Because there are lots of choices in infant formula. He was oversimplifying it and making it like really almost absurd, because it's like saying, oh, I'm not going to eat any fruit because I found a worm in my apple. That's just silly. Like, I don't think that that's really how people are going to react.
If I may read to you what it says on the Gerber baby food QR code, because I went and
is that
checked it.
formula.
No, so
Baby food.
there's a baby food bottle, there's a QR code, you scan it. The transparency you deserve. Our commitment to caregivers. Feeding tiny tummies comes with big responsibility.
This is after you QR'd.
Yeah, it's after our
Okay.
QR, this is the first thing that came up.
First committee.
We know the presence of heavy metals in baby foods can be concerning. We are here to provide you with the peace of mind you deserve. Our quality standards are industry leading. We quality check our 300+ ingredients before crafting each of our foods and test every single finished product for heavy metals. If you have any questions, our Parent Resource Center is here 24/7. Love the Gerber family. And then you go to the next page, and it says the peace of mind you deserve. And it shows where they tested in at. I then went to another product, scanned it, and I could have done better. How we ensure quality of every step. Happy Family Organics. And we are on a mission to change the trajectory of children's health through nutrition. We are proud to be a leader in baby food industry with among the strictest quality and safety standards in the US, led by our passionate team of quality and food safety experts. And then it says check your product. And then here it gave a list of the different products and what their levels were. And they're all very low, and they're below the set of standards that the FDA. But because if they were above the standards, it would, it'd go to feed the rodents outside by the bait boxes.
Quick question, and then we'll move on to the next topic here. Does the package, I don't know if you got a picture of the package, does it say toxic on the label? For the baby?
I didn't see anywhere where it said that, Chair.
I can't remember. Does the whole state has to?
Yeah, I don't like the bill even says that.
No.
We put that on anything.
No, and why would you list that? You list the concerns, it's all in wordsmithing.
So the only reason I can imagine you would list it is if somebody told you
You had
that
to.
you had to, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Ellen. Hi. Would you like to come up to the table? So Representative Lipsky, I don't know whether you were following the Environment Committee's testimony today, this afternoon even?
No, Jed was.
Wasn't, okay. So the wood products manufacturing legislation that we looked at, I think we had a show of hands the other day supporting it. We didn't formally vote it out because the Environment Committee was having a drive-by. And they had that this afternoon.
Yes.
You were there, I guess, Ellen?
Yes.
And I heard through the grapevine that they didn't have any concerns. Is that your sense as well?
Yes.
Do we need to look at that, Bill? No, I think unless somebody wants to see it again, we could just have a vote then.
So just for clarification, they made no amendments or.
Okay, is that why you're here, Ellen?
Well,
Really?
no, I think I was invited for the other committee bill
Okay.
on municipal regulation, but I'm also happy to do what the committee's pleasure is.
Well, I think it would be our, I don't know if it would be our pleasure, but rather than have you sit there while we take a vote, because you're busy, if you wanted to give us an update on the other, I don't know if you were here to do that, right? Because I haven't
Yes.
heard
Um,
the other committee.
the other committee, the Environment Committee did have concerns about the other committee bill 772, municipal regulation of agriculture. They're concerned about the use of the tier 1 areas as part of that legislation.
Tier 1 and tier 1 A and B, okay. So not A, B, it's just tier 1 as a,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, because those tiers haven't actually been finalized. We don't know how large those areas are or where they are yet.
Okay. So, any, beyond that, is there anything that you were deputized to tell us?
I think the only other thing specifically, I mean, they did have a long discussion this morning with Steve Collier and Josh Hanford. And we're pleased that there's continued to be collaboration between them. The only small suggestion I think I got was that if you're continuing with the study at the end of the bill, they would like to be one of the committees that receives the report.
Oh, yeah, I did
Okay.
get that. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. And then I think they also they talked about the bill quite a bit. They did talk about the issue you all did start to discuss when I was here last about when should farming have been taking place on that site? For purpose of your exemption, did you want it to be historically farmed or farming taking place at the time of this new regulation?
Right, yeah, and I did talk to Chair Sheldon about that and said that my belief was that we were trying to say very specifically that farming needed to be taking place now or at the time of passage or signature or enactment, whatever. So not previously, but it had to be taking place now. And I know it was confusing otherwise, but that's what I think we wanted to do.
And so I made that change moments ago.
Okay.
So if you would like to see a version with that, I can give you that.
Well, I think that maybe what we should do is wait and hear what hear from them about their concern. Why don't you bring it up? You're here. We've got a few minutes.
Okay. I never bring my laptop to committee because I get really nervous that you all are going to ask me to do something. However, I brought it today in case you wanted to vote this out quickly. So I'm not rushing you. You have tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if I can put it on the screen.
I'm on there 6 events.
Oh, okay. You only have 6?
Maybe
I've got more than that.
more than, maybe we have more. I've got a conservative estimate.
I think we have a couple more. And I think
Maybe it's 8.
I think we, although it's very tempting to vote it out quickly, I think that we shouldn't, because we did ask the other committee to
Great.
weigh in, and we haven't heard back officially from them.
Well, I can
Environment. House environment.
We have to talk about sap and bees too.
Yeah. Are you ready for that conversation?
maple sugar.
Cameron, how much time are you able to give us here?
I have to be in Ways and Means at 3:15.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
so we'll try to.
Cows and wise.
Okay. And when I was sitting over there, I was attempting to send this to Patricia, so I will do that as I am able to momentarily. So there were a couple of just small changes. So this would be draft 6.1, but there are only a couple small changes that you all were just discussing. We all were just discussing. So So, okay. The findings have not changed. Neither has section 1.
So is it tier 1 or tier 1 and B? I mean, it sounds,
I say tier 1, 2 parts of
it
tier
looks
1.
like it's saying A and B that just flashed by.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I was saying tier 1 as a whole because they have an issue with the whole concept of using any tiers. Your bill does reference specifically both tier 1A and tier 1B.
Shows that.
well,
Yes, you're
so what do
three
we,
tier.
so what do we want as a committee? Like, did they say no, they don't approve it, and then we need to come up with a different idea? Or we've got their
So-
opinion and we just keep what we had before?
So we're not really, I think, making that decision right now. This is what we sent them with to review. It's what we had
Yeah.
last in front of us, and it was 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
Or just one for convenience sake. But for some reason, they would prefer, everyone likes us to say 1A and 1B rather than 1. Okay.
It's a different criteria
Yeah.
in the law
But
to qualify as 1A.
for expediency,
Yeah, so
they
we're,
would prefer not to use that reference at all.
okay. So they don't like the idea of our bill having anything tier related, period. That we just heard, at least through Ledge Council. But this is what we sent them. And there are a few other things that were just cleaned up that Ellen is showing us. And this is just a refresher. Here's what we sent them with these few things cleaned up.
Yes, they did also discuss whether or not you should take out, or line 13 and 14 be taken out, given that it is slightly redundant. Because if a building is open to the public, it will need to comply with the building and life safety code.
Okay, yeah, I think we had come to a similar conclusion.
And then for your exemption or your carve out here down on line 19, this is what we were just discussing. So a parcel where farming is taking place as of July 1, 2026, that is changed from your prior draft 5.1. That has been conserve or agricultural purposes, or, and this is, I also wanted to follow up on this, farm structures built prior to July 1, 2026. Did you want to keep that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is one change that's in draft 6.1. And then I guess the other one is just here at the top of page 5. At the top of page 5 in your prior drafts, what was subsection C was a provision that said the municipality may be less restrictive and not do this. In briefly talking to the chair a little while ago, you had indicated that perhaps that should come out. And so that's why as I was drafting this a little while ago, I took that out. You can put that back in. I can go either way on that because I do think you do use may language in this section. So a town may or may not choose to regulate under this version regardless.
So I think that I just want to pull up the previous version.
And that was 5.1. A couple.
Sorry, I'm in the wrong place here. We're on Page 5.
Mhm.
Is used in this section,
And so the previous language was subsection C.
less restrictive.
Yes, less restrictive.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Municipality may adopt a bylaw concerning farming that is less restrictive. And you're saying that we know that, we don't need to say it.
Yeah, because in the language above this, it does say may. So they may choose to do this in tier 1 or tier 1A or B, or they may not.
Okay. I think it's fine to leave it out. I think fewer words is better if you're accomplishing the same thing.
And then the only other change I was literally typing was adding the committee down at the bottom, the environment committee.
Okay, adding
Yep.
the Senate committee, I think should get it as well.
Oh, okay. Yep.
House Environment Committee's getting it. Okay, are you ready for questions about SAP and bees?
Well, Cameron is here, and so we can't do a lot of hypotheticals about SAP.
We have 5 minutes for,
I have a different question.
Yeah.
So Ellen, on the piece that says properties that are conserved for farming, just that sentence there. Are those two different things if you go there? There's,
They are two different things. Yes.
so one exception is that where farming's been taking place. Another, so it's or essentially,
There are 3 options in this sentence, yes.
so is that? Can you be conserved for agricultural purposes, but not be farming when this law takes effect?
That is how it is phrased currently. If you would like to change that, you can.
I'm just confused on what that scenario looks like.
So that is a scenario where we have multiple existing programs where land is conserved for agricultural purposes.
But no farming is taking place.
Correct. And I don't know the universe of how many there are, but I thought it was something you might want to include here. If you don't want to, you can take that out.
It's not the nature, Bluffside Farm in Newport. Land Trust bought it all. A lot of it right now is sitting by the way they got it set up, walking trails and kind of foul light hanging going on, and someday they may change their mind up. It's some of the greatest agronomic soils in Orleans County with the best growing.
But in the easement, it says it's conserved for farming.
It's conserved farming, so.
Okay, no.
So, you know, and we want to be careful that if it sits, well, as I said before, it's where Heather should be farming.
Right, yeah.
Right there in Newport, right in town with 20 Jersey cows.
Representative Brigham?
I think you'll see there's a considerable amount of land in the state that's been conserved and the farms have gone out of business. And it's sitting there growing up to brush. The other thing I wanted to, Ellen, you said that they didn't want that in tier 1, they didn't like the term tier 1 A and B because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not for that reason. They know what it is. They don't think we all
Well,
know the universe yet. And so knowing how much land this actually involves is difficult right now to predict because that process is not finished yet.
so when we're reviewing Act 250 applications, we don't even talk about it yet because it hasn't been
Doesn't
decided.
exist. Yeah.
So why, Bob?
Yeah.
Because it will exist, and that's,
It's been in 2 years. but we're still waiting.
Representative Lipsky.
Yeah, I actually,
Is that Greg?
it was a great mistake.
I actually concur with the reasoning of the environment committee, that, the maps haven't been created, the districts haven't been created. It's a concept, so I see no problem with their suggestion.
Well, their suggestion, like, we have to start from square one. Is that-
No,
that's
just
the only
take out that
problem.
one,
Yeah,
just take that one sentence.
Well, taking that one sentence out removes everything from this bill. It's all based
Well,
on,
then I don't concur with that.
I was gonna take your temperature.
I can see that they have a certain logic in saying that, and Jack just expressed that like
Yeah,
pretty well.
he did very well.
But it would really take the heart of the bill out and not leave much. It would not solve the problem we were trying to solve.
We might not be able to grow vegetables in a wildlife corridor.
Yeah.
Also, the negotiations between the stakeholders, like the league, have used this language, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Representative Burt has his hand raised and I just emailed Patricia, what I put on the screen so that it can be posted. I apologize.
Yeah.
It's,
Right.
yeah.
And then
Okay.
Representative Burt, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm more inclined to. Is it possible? I'm on that same side of, because we don't really know what specifically tier 1B, I'm more concerned about is actually going to look like. I don't feel comfortable being able to vote in favor of legislation that's using tier 1B right now, because I just don't know what the extent of that is. I've been thinking that maybe language like, parcels that have access to both municipal sewer and water. To me, that's more straightforward for delineating. At least offhand, I don't know. Obviously that opens up a can of worms, but I don't think I can vote for anything that says tier 1B because I just don't know what it is. And I don't want to make a mistake on that. So I just want to say that.
Okay, thank you, Greg, and I appreciate your brainstorming on alternatives because that's maybe where we would have to go. Before we let Ellen go, is there anything else that you wanted to ask about this draft and anything? Please feel free to ask. Well, what's up there? So this is pretty much what we looked at last Tuesday, sent it to House Environment. They've been looking at it. They flagged a couple of little things, and that's what we just talked about here. And now we will have to decide, what are we going to do?
real quick,
Yeah.
wasn't the league in favor of this in tier 1A and 1B?
Yes.
Okay, and rural Vermont and NOFA are kind of in favor of having tier 1A and 1B.
I think that all three stakeholders went into the House and Environment Committee and said they would be okay with this.
Oh, man.
Greg, you're not muted. Yeah. You were there, maybe, Ellen. I don't know if that is in fact what you observed, but
The testimony today was that from PLCT was that they had proposed a tier 1A and 1B. However, their language was different.
their language was different.
Their language was different. So
All right.
A little bit, but
So why don't we thank Ellen for that intel, for this update. We will stay in close touch over the next 24 hours.
Into the door.
We are, before we go to the floor at 3:30, going to vote out the other bill. So don't let me forget to do that.
Which
And then
bill is that?
the wood products. Yeah.
So on that.
Yeah.
Written on the record of action,
Cameron, come on up.
enact relating to regulation of forestry under Act 250.
Yes.
And then I have this H7H7.
Yes.
When I go on this internet device that the government provided for me and type H7H7,
Not H787. No, that's, yeah.
it says Teresa Wood is the sponsor.
No, that's a different bill. Yep.
So what is the actual bill name?
So it is 26 and it's 26 dash instead of H. So make that note and we'll take a vote before we.
Dash 787.
Yeah, yeah,
No H in the
no H, yeah. It's because it's a committee bill. Yeah, and it will be assigned a committee bill as soon as it is on the notice calendar. And then
Gets an H.
it got an H, yeah. So assigned a committee number. So Karen, since we don't know how, we've only got you for a minute here, you've updated the right to garden.
I had it edited,
Okay,
and then you have a new draft 1.2 that I did provide and to your committee assistant. And there was, I think, two minor just changes that our editing team made based on drafting style. So I think where we left off from this morning, we were talking about the regulation of structure and permanent versus temporary structure, and whether or not it made sense to further develop that, either limiting the association in the language that you have, or allowing the associations that ability to regulate amongst themselves. So I think that was one piece that we had left off with this morning as further discussion.
okay.
But you do have a draft 1.2 based on the editing back from the team.
Okay. Where that's called strike all on our page. So does anybody feel strongly one way or the other? And if we don't hear anybody feeling strongly, I'm inclined to leave things, generally speaking, the way they are. So, Kim, do you want to bring it up?
Yes.
And Representative Basil.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, in terms of what Cameron was alluding to a moment ago, that I feel giving maybe 3 examples of the type of structures that we think should not be restricted could be beneficial. Naming particularly a see-through fence, tomato cages and trellises or other support items to grow vegetables in a garden plot or something like that. Because I just feel like if we say, oh, we'll let the homeowners decide what's appropriate, they don't necessarily know what you need for gardening. And they might say, oh, that's so unsightly, that tomato cage, it's made out of plastic and we don't like plastic or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it just feels to me like a few basics that give the hint, like, this is what you mean. We need these basic things for gardening. You don't get to exclude those. You can exclude like that it can't be 12 feet tall or something, but I don't know.
Page is that 4?
Page 4, yes, sir. We're reviewing the subdivision right here.
Seemed to work.
Yeah, it's listed strike all.
I think it would be under number 1.
Cameron.
When I hit strike all, it says this page doesn't exist. But when I.
Hang on a second
Showing
here.
up at all.
So under today's date, if you look at Cameron,
Mm-hmm.
let's see here. You've got version 1.2 amendment strike all.
It says version 1 amendment strike all.
All right, so refresh your page there
Yeah.
and see if a new thing pops up, because
Yeah.
things are happening quickly here.
Yep, there it is. Thank you, Chair.
Looking at page 4. So as we discussed, I'm going to scroll back to the bottom of page 3. So you have the prohibition saying the association cannot, unreasonably restrict or prohibit the use of a vegetable garden. And then in this section, you're saying,
Is that supposed to say unreasonably? Because it says reasonably.
no, sir, I'm saying above in the sub B.
Okay.
Yep. And in the sub B up here on page, assuming it's 2, yes, sir, page 2. So we're saying that page 2, lines 16 and 17, the association cannot prohibit or unreasonably restrict the installation or use of a vegetable garden. And then when we get to that page 3 and 4, that sub C, we're saying, but you can reasonably restrict these things. And one of them that was added based on the conversation from the other day about whether to give the association the authority to reasonably regulate certain structures that may be built on a vegetable garden. There's also concern about, potential soil disruption, et cetera. So I added as a starting point this subdivision 1. So it would give the association the authority to provide reasonable regulation of erection and installation of permanent or temporary structures. And you've been talking about whether or not to exclude from that specific types of structures, to say you can regulate your structures, but you can't regulate these structures.
So within, I would say, did you say a fence?
I mean, the fence, in thinking about it, it feels like maybe a fence would be the only thing that would really count as a structure. I mean, I think, could
The other
it be
things
so
that
petty
people
to say
mentioned
that you're not, because it wouldn't be, the other ones would be temporary.
Yeah.
But a fence would be a little bit more, a fence would be potentially in that category and could be helpful in having a garden and could be argued against by people who were concerned about aesthetics or something. So,
You mean a fence around the garden? Or
Yeah.
a fence for the
Yeah.
bees to grow on?
no, around the garden. Yeah.
So would we solve that issue if we agreed that that's what we wanted to do by saying at the end of 1 there in line 4, with the exception of or excluding fences?
Yeah, I would think about it two ways. First off, keep in mind, any regulations they put into place would have to be reasonable, and that's both in this section and separate.
Yeah.
So there is the argument currently with the language as it is, that anything that would be unreasonable would not be authorized. But as we talked this morning, and I mentioned directly, something that you may think is unreasonable, I may think is reasonable. So that's gonna then just be up to the association itself as they're discussing how they want to regulate themselves. You can exclude entirely certain things. So you could say you can, reasonably regulate the erection and installation of permanent or temporary structures, except, a see-through fence to, protect the garden itself or something to that effect, in which case you're saying you can't regulate that. And that's where I was mentioning this morning, depending on whether you want to mandate that or allow the community to resolve those things on their own, is the policy direction that you all would have to choose which way you want to go. If you make that exception, though, keep in mind, you could be opening up a lot of points of potential issue. If you say, except that you can't regulate the erection of temporary see-through fence to protect the garden, you then open up a lot of questions about what does that look like?
What makes it a see-through fence? What is or isn't?
Or to the point that was being raised, if there are certain aesthetic requirements that the community wants to meet or uphold. And, so I put up a fence that the entire community thinks is kind of unsightly. And to use the word, to use the phrase, that was used, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. If you make just kind of a blanket exception. And there's a policy decision for you all. I'm not telling you.
Just before we go any further with this, I suggested this morning, and maybe I am misinterpreting it, but that language above that says you can't, doesn't say this word for word, but you can't functionally exclude or prevent somebody from having a garden. And if you are saying you can't have a fence and animals are coming in and eating everything, you have essentially prevented somebody from having a garden, in my interpretation. But you, as the association, might think differently, and then the court might ultimately decide.
Yes, sir.
So that, okay.
And so, I mean, I think what you could say, right, we could try to get even a little clearer or specific. I mean, I could draft it to say, you know, they can reasonably regulate the erection and installation of permanent or temporary structures, you know, however, I could try to figure out how to word in there that the association must allow some sort of erection of a barrier to protect the garden, but the association can regulate the aesthetics of what that barrier looks like. I mean, we could kind of go 2 steps down the thought. That way you're allowing the community to have some management of what the thing looks like, but you're saying that you still need to allow somebody to erect some sort of protective barrier in place.
Yeah, the only thing I thought of just now is you put a fence up. And who has liability to that fence? Is it the person that has the garden? Or is it the whole association because it's on association property?
You know, like somebody trips over.
Trips over, someone runs in, falls on it, it just, and hey, I need to put a better fence up because the deer in our neighborhood love to eat Swiss cheddar.
Yeah.
So that I would just say in answer to that, that was, you know, kind of one of the concerns that was raised by, you know, Ms. Jensen when she, you know, testified was you're talking about allowing the use of common elements. Now it's limited, that the language is restricted to a limited common element. So it is for the exclusive use of the individual unit owner, but it's still a common element, which is typically maintained by the association itself. And so the association would, you know, kind of carry the insurance coverage on those spaces, et cetera. You do have in the language, however, that the unit owner would be responsible for any damage resulting from what is installed. You know, whether that includes some sort of liability coverage, you know, you could include that.
Yeah. Okay, things get complicated quickly.
They do.
John and then Jack.
I was wondering, is there some catch-all way, instead of getting more specific of saying essentially like these vegetable gardeners, as long as they're following essentially like AMPs and use whatever structures, you know, that community feels, you know, have traditionally been used or used. So, because, you know, just when you said 12-foot high, I'm thinking, well, you could have, you know, like whole beans grow on 12-foot high stakes. So if you wanted to grow hops on a 20-foot, you know, it's like there's certain methods for doing it that if they were accepted from growers out there, whether it's NOFA or anybody else, those would be fine. So we could catch them all that way. And if there was a dispute, you could get somebody in and say, yeah, this is actually, you need fencing for Swiss chard, or you need 12-foot high stakes for.
I think I think you have to go, Cameron.
I'm gonna run, I will say just very quickly in response to that point, you have in the definition, you've excluded activities that are subject to required agricultural practices.
Right, I'm just saying somewhere, NOFA or some sort of farming, gardening group
Yeah.
would have accepted.
Channel 3, Paul Nardozzi.
Right, exactly. Yeah, who, you know, there could be references if there was a dispute. Now, three gardeners come in and say, yeah, this isn't wild, this isn't, you know, spike fence or whatever.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that while I'm thinking of it, that the resources that were sent to me originally with this bill, when somebody said, you know, take a look at this, interesting. It was really talking about like gardens that didn't grow very tall. And I think the intent was to say, we should allow people to put gardens in that aren't going to be very disruptive. And you can imagine some things are less disruptive than others. Yes. And in some cases, you're just going to need a fence period to keep out rabbits and woodchucks. So, Jack.
Just wanted to say, I built a 9-unit, 3 triplexes on my farm in Georgia 10 years ago. And I had the pleasure of being the head of the HOA till I sold them all.
Yeah.
And like he said, when you have that HOA meeting, you're gonna have 9 different opinions and it'll drag on for hours.
Okay, good to remember.
I'm gonna step out and I'll.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back. Okay.
Thank you. Michelle.
Yeah, I'm just thinking now, as we're talking about what we expect would be allowed and what might not be allowed, should we put some size limitations on this? You know, because like if you're talking about, I mean, the woman that came in to testify who kind of started this whole bill, as I understand it, you know, there's a big common amount of ground and she wants to use a little plot right next to her house to have, I think she called it like a salsa garden or a salad garden or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, should we put some kind of numbers on that? Because otherwise it really could get out of control. You know, if there's a giant shared property and somebody gets a rototiller and like plows something the size of a football field, like.
Yeah, I don't think that we need to do anything more restrictive to the bill that wasn't suggested.
Okay,
I mean, I think that we heard so we gave the opportunity to those organizations to say, this is wide open.
Yeah.
Haven't said that, then I don't think we need to be.
so the understanding is that they would just work it out with whoever the entity was that might be not present.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
let
can set
them,
rules.
let them set their own rules.
One more question, yeah.
I'm wondering if we could address this by simply taking out the word temporary. And since installation of permanent structures, so that would mean sheds, that would mean a solid wooden fence that might be objectionable, but temporary stuff, it's gone. They can't regulate temporary stuff.
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful idea. So the trellis is temporary.
Cages are temporary.
Wire.
A 6-foot
fence would be-
wire.
Temporary, no, mine's temporary.
No, you
I take it down every winter.
If you hire a company to
6
put your
foot-
fence in, that's permanent.
A 6-foot deer fence, you know, that's what, but as long as it's not permanent,
You
they,
use those metal stakes, pound them in, put your
Yeah.
wire around and roll your wire up.
yeah,
Put it
take
in
them
your
down.
sit in your bedroom.
I don't know, it just seemed like a way, because we're going
Yeah.
round and round and round.
Yeah, and a reminder that we all agreed this morning that we don't have to get it right the first time and that the other body will have a chance to correct all of our mistakes.
So should we vote? Should we?
Yeah, so Jed, would you call the roll on,
Not on this.
not on this, yeah, on the law of the products manufacturer?
I'm prepared, ready to do so, Chairman.
All right, so let me first see if I have a motion to if, Mike, this is a committee bill. What's our motion supposed to be?
You just move to approve bill for introduction.
All right, so can I have a motion to approve for introduction, this draft? What's the draft number?
6-787.
787, but it has a number. Just get it right. Uh, 3.2.
26-.
Representative Brigham moved that. Is there any further discussion? All right.
Need a second for that?
We don't. I don't think we do, so the clerk control the roll.
All right, we're voting on an act relating to regulation enforcing under Act 250. It states March 12th, committee bill. Draft 3.2. And John Bartholomew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michelle Boslin,
Yes.
Jack Brigham,
Yes.
Greg Bird,
Yeah,
yes, Jed Lipsky, yes,
Yes.
John O'Brien,
yes.
Chairman David Durfee.
Yes.
Vote is 8-0-0. Passed.
Right, thank you.
We have a lot of bees in our committee now. Bees.
Rules limit how many times Greg can vote, and I want to make sure that he wants to use one of his days.
Yes, I think this is
today.
his first vote, and we did talk about that.
I think there are only three, and there's a lot of session left, so
Yeah.
just want to make sure that he wants to use. one of his-
Okay. Greg, we're just pointing out that, John just reminded us that you get 3 days when you can vote remotely, and want to be sure that you're okay using this vote for one of those days. And this is the only vote we're taking today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess given the unanimous nature of our voting, I could go without voting on this one, Chair.
We don't know what's coming in the end of the
Okay.
session. Anyway, that's on my own thought.
All right, yeah, thank you.
So I don't know, is it possible to revoke my vote on this one or not?
I'm not sure if it is, Greg.
Okay,
but we'll see,
all
we'll
good.
see, we'll figure things out.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And before you go, first of all, thank you, everybody, for all of the work that we did on that bill. And thank you, Jed, for recording it.
Who's reporting?
Jed is reporting it. It'll be on notice tomorrow, Friday. So that means next Tuesday, it would be second reading. And Ellen can help you with your bill presentation. Yeah.
Does this get delivered to?
Yep. So before we leave for the day, we need to consult with the clerk on that. Yeah.
So it's committee bill. The chair has to email drafting operations to approve it. And then Cameron is the drafter, or Ellen.
Ellen.
Ellen has to also email drafting operations to approve it. You don't need the vote yet. Ultimately, it will go to the clerk, but right now.
Chair Durfee makes those communications.
So it goes to drafting operations with
Yeah.
a copy of okay. And the reporter of the bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike is here not just to help us understand the way things work, but with some feedback on that CAFO language that Jared and Richard talked about this morning. Mike, do you want to come up?
Can I share the screen?
Yeah, Patricia will. give you-
Yes, I've given you
Thank you.
permission.
Thank you.
You've been part of these CAFO,
Pardon me?
you've been part of the CAFO study group?
I haven't been going, no. I've just been getting updates. But Bradley gave me this language earlier today and have a lot of questions. And concerns. And you'll need additional amendments to law if you want to make this work.
Okay.
So last year in Act 67, the bill that created or transferred more authority to A&R regarding the regulation of concentrated animal feeding operations, you created a community study stakeholder group. And it was just a broad directive to A&R to engage key stakeholders regarding the implementation and transition to a concentrated animal feeding program that conforms with the Clean Water Act. There were no specific members. There were no specific dates. The only date in the bill is to report back by February of 26. Basically the results of the stakeholder group. Stakeholder group is ongoing. No report has been provided. The miscellaneous environmental amendments bill will postpone the CAFO general permit until September of 2027. And so I have just language issues. This isn't an extension of the Act 67 stakeholder group because it's an entirely new group. So you should just call it whatever you want to call it, but not an extension. First, other issue is that you're not going to be able to convene this by July 2026. You probably won't pass any legislation that relates to this. And even if it's effective on passage, you're going to have to get 9 members appointed to this commission. You're not going to get it done by July 1, 2026. So just be aware of that. And then you look at who is appointed. Actually, this sentence right here, if changes to the process are needed, the stakeholder group shall have direct access to the Secretary of A&R and the Secretary of Ag. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Direct access. Yeah.
So I think that needs clarification. And then for the stakeholder group, who is appointing them? It doesn't say. And then it says livestock farmers that are in full compliance and good stead. I don't know what that means either. There's a definition of good standing in statute, which says that you don't have an enforcement action against you or a pending enforcement action against you. If that's the intent, I would say replace full compliance and good stead with that are in good standing with the agencies as defined under 6 VSA 48. So you have the appointment issue. Well, for the 3 ag tech service providers, you've named 2. Why not just name the 3rd? Or specify who's appointing who. Again, who's appointing the representatives from the environmental community. The executive director of the conservation districts, that's ex officio, that's fine. I will note that it's an unbalanced study group. You have 8 members of the agricultural community and 3 members of the environmental community. And that may be what you want. But I just have to point that out. At the first meeting, they elect co-chairs. I would not suggest co-chairs. Co-chairs, especially with this type of dynamic, can go really bad. I would recommend just having a chair elected by the group. And then this is where you get to the point where you might need amendment to other law. So discussions at the stakeholder group meetings regarding individual farms and possible permit violations will be considered confidential. This study group and study groups like this have been determined by the Vermont courts to be instrumentalities of the state. Instrumentalities of the state are subject to the Public Records Act and the Open Meetings Law. Because it's a public body, the meetings have to be public. And the only way you can have confidential discussions is if you go into executive session. There isn't a specific executive session allowance that would allow this. So if you want this to be confidential and allow for discussions at these public meetings, you should probably specify that.
We're supposed to be downstairs right about now. And
I have a few other things.
okay.
Where did this language come from?
It came from one of the 3.
I actually have to go to an appointment, so I have to head out.
So one of the 3.
We're not voting on anything then, are we?
No, this will be the
All right, see you tomorrow.
So the final thing is, I don't know when this stakeholder group ends. It seems like it goes on forever. And it's reporting quarterly, but it doesn't have to have any formal report. And that's really a decision for you. Then you have a third-party auditor that is overseeing A&R's inspections. I think that that's going to be problematic to EPA because part of what EPA wanted was A&R to be clearly in control of its CAFO program. And then you have a contract. This is going to require an appropriation. I would think an auditor over 2 years that is educated and versed in this is probably at least $200,000.
If I may. If this isn't gonna start until 2027 now, as you alluded to earlier. This is something that could be taken up next session.
I don't know what the intent of this is.
Well, the intent was the stakeholders of the group in New York. The stakeholders still meet. And they've had their program for a long time.
15 years.
Yeah, and their stakeholders still meet. And look at the program and say, you know, what can we do to make it better? Where is it working? Where it isn't? And they still meet. And I don't know after 15 years what they're still looking at, but they still meet. So we wanted to set up the same thing here in Vermont, that we could watch and watch how the program develops and grows and
I clearly get it now. Do you want the members to be reimbursed? Because it's going to potentially at least 4 meetings a year because they're meeting quarterly.
And as I told the farmer part of the function said $50. We leave the farm to go to a meeting because it's important to the farmers. If we're not doing it for the retirement benefits. I'm sure and I'm speaking, maybe I should be careful what I'm speaking for, but you know, the TSPs and other people will be paid by their respective groups.
Okay.
So, but again, if the process isn't going to start for a whole nother year, we can work on this next session and it, yeah, so this was kind of thrown together and it was brought down in the Senate and person was concerned that it wasn't going to make it through on the Senate miscellaneous bill, so it got punted to us last night. And
Well, if you want me to work on it, I can work on it and make it better. I might not be able to do that by tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that given the timing and the time that
yeah,
if this is critical, we'll find something to attach it to
well, that's
after crossover.
just what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It has germaneness probably.
No, this is now germane to the environmental amendments bill. Because that pushes out the CAFO date and makes multiple amendments to that.
Yeah,
You could easily attach it.
yeah, so we can work it up and then attach it to there.
So that's something you can do, Richard, on your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that still has to go to the Senate.
Yeah,
And so it's definitely got an opportunity.
okay. All right, I'll
Okay.
look you up next week. Not
Yeah, I'll-
this, or are you slammed up hard next week too and look you up the week after?
I will have something for you Monday or Tuesday.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Like, all right, we should wrap up for the day. Thank you, everybody, for your patience jumping around.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, we're
Quarter
here.
after 9.
Yeah, 9:15, and if everybody could be